Hi everyone, welcome to Ongaku Concept. My name is Joshua, and today I want to talk about Don't Think Twice, which is the ending theme to Kingdom Hearts 3. I just want to give my general observations on it. I've uploaded a transcription of the song, which you can look at if you want to compare the sheet music to what I'm talking about. So, first, just to give some general information on it, it was composed and arranged by, and lyrics as well, by Utada Hikaru. And it's always impressive to me, by the way, when a vocalist, somebody who's a very well-trained vocalist or instrumentalist, composes and arranges and produces and writes lyrics for an entire song by themselves, because those are all very difficult fields. And there are people who specialize in each one of them, and that's their entire career. And so for somebody to do all of them at once, proficiently, is really, really amazing to me. So I think that's something that's really special about this song. As for this song, it's in the key of G minor. And it's in 3/4 time. It's often called waltz time. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. It sort of sways. In addition, the rhythm is swung. It's 128 beats per minute, which is a moderate tempo. And although I think it feels slower in a triple meter than it does in a duple one, it's the eighths are swung. So instead of being like that, it's like this. The first eighth note takes up more than half of the space. So instead of being divided evenly, instead of your beats being divided evenly into groups of 2, the first space takes up roughly 2/3 of that space. So it's like this. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you can get, if you have trouble feeling that sort of rhythm, you can get it if you try standing up and skipping. If you have a little bit of space, if you try skipping, that's the rhythm that your feet make is going to be the exact same rhythm that swung eighths is. So, I want to talk a little bit about the song in a broad sense, in terms of its form and the melodic direction. And I've got some notes over here that I've written down. Maybe I'll share these in the... Yeah, I think I'll do that. I think I'll share these notes for patrons. So if you want to take a look at those, then you can head over to Patreon. So the form is interesting. It's sort of divided into 2 sections. You have the intro, which is just this, it just introduces the elements, the piano, vocals, strings, etc. And then you have the first half, which encompasses the first 2 verses, like, by the end of the second chorus. So it's verse A, B, C. I'm not going to talk verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Just A, B, C, A, B, C, and then there's a second half where there's a bridge and another chorus, and it moves on with extra material. And then there's an outro, which is the same as the intro. So you have 2 sections and then end caps, bookends, on the ends. And something that you're going to see in this song, there's going to be 2 things that I want to talk about. The first is mirroring. So there are a number of elements in this song which mirror each other. There are reflections of one another. And then there are, well, I guess that is, I said two things, but I guess that's the only thing. You'll have things that reflect each other back to back, and then you'll have things that reflect each other generationally, so to speak. So you have something kind of like a Matryoshka doll. One of those Russian dolls where you have like, it kind of looks like an egg, and then you take off the top, and there's another one inside of it that's the same thing but smaller, and they're nested inside like that. That's kind of how this song is structured. And I think that's really interesting, and I want to share that with you. So, which one should I talk about first? I guess I'll talk about, I think I'll talk about it on a more zoomed in level first. So, you have the A section. Once you get through the intro. By the way, the whole thing is based on 2 chord progressions. So the first is and that's E flat major 7, F major, G minor 7, B flat over F. And maybe I shouldn't waste so much time giving that information because it's already in the score, if you want to look at that. But so you have that progression. I won't talk too much about the theory about it, but it is notable, I think, that it starts on E flat, and that's the flat 6 of the key. That's classified as a predominant chord. It's meant to prepare the dominant, which in this case is F, and which leads to the tonic, which is G. And the fact that it begins on a predominant, and actually every single phrase in this song begins on an E flat major 7 chord, brings with it a perpetual sense of motion. The second progression is a variation on that. So that progression is also used. E flat major 7, F, D7, G minor 7. And sometimes it's replaced with G major, which is a Picardy third. And that progression is called a Royal Road progression, or Odo Shinko in Japan. It's referring to an idiom that means there's no easy way to success except that this kind of is, because lots and lots of hit songs use it. So it's sort of poking fun at it as a very, very popular chord progression. So to get into the A section, there's something I want to talk about with the primary, with the A melody. So it's and it's sort of separated into 2 parts. First you have this part, this half. And then you have this half. And they contrast one another. You have busyness, and then you have idleness. Movement, and then rest. And so that allows you to sort of digest the first half of the phrase. And that's repeated. And then the B section carries on that same phrase. The B section is built on the same melody as the A section, but it's made more complex, so more notes are introduced. So the B section is a development of the A section. The A section presents the thematic material. The B section develops that. And then the C section contrasts that, which is the chorus, contrasts that by introducing new material. But before I move on from that, I want to mention the mirroring in the A section. So, let's see if I can change my posture a little bit. So the A section here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So just rhythmically, if we just avoid the notes, now that's a palindromic melody. Rhythm, sorry. You have 3 beats, 2, 3, and then 1 that's held out. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If we combine the eighths in the first beat of the 4th bar, it's just 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 4 beats, 2 that are quiet, 2 that are quiet, 4 beats. And that's a mirror melody. And I don't really have anything to say about that exactly. I don't know how you might apply it. I can, just due to the fact that the second half is based on the first, there is some sense of order in there. And so if you're looking to create interesting melodies that still retain a sense of organization, that might be something to look at. And you'll see it come up again, not that melody specifically, but that concept of mirrored melodies in the chorus. So you have the chorus. And that, so there's 2 things I want to talk about with the chorus. The first is the ersatz melody. Now, I'm probably not using that term exactly right, but if you look up ersatz, and you are S-A-T-Z, and maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong too, but I gave you the spelling. So if you look up that, there is a division of music theory called Schenkerian analysis, developed by I think he was a German music theorist. I don't remember his given name, but his last name is Schenker, S-C-H-E-N-K-E-R. And he was of the opinion that all functional music was, or perhaps well-composed music, could be reduced to an extremely simple melody. The scale degrees being 3, 2, 1, or mi, re, do. So, in this case, D, C, B flat. And a great deal of melodies are written in that way. So you have this. There's D. There's C. And there's B flat. So there's that melody, and then everything else is like an ornamentation or embellishment on that. And so that's something to look into if you're curious about that sort of thing. There's a mirrored structure within the chorus melody. So initially you have this scale pattern that moves upwards towards these longer notes. Right? But the second half of the melody does the opposite. So you have So if you remember how I said that the A, B, and C sections You had the A section, which was the presentation of thematic material, the B section, which was a development on that, and then the C section, which introduced new contrasting material. The entire song is actually like that as well, because if you look at the A, B, and C sections, okay, after that, it moves on to a new A section, and B section, and C section. It repeats them, but they're different. They have different lyrics and different instrumentation. The second iteration of the B section is actually half as long, and it changes the chord progression. And that's the first time that you hear the Royal Road, which is sort of foreshadowing its presence later on. So, in that sense, the repetition of the A, B, and C sections is a development on the first. And since you have presentation, development, contrast with new material, that's exactly what happens after the second chorus. So the second chorus ends, and you have new material. You have this bridge section, and the D section following that. And then you have a return to the chorus, and a closing section that's quite long. And all of this is new material, save for the chorus. It's all new material. And there's something to point out about that as well. You have the first half of the song, which is A, B, C, and then the development A, B, C, which presents the thematic material. And that's the stuff that everybody's going to remember, primarily. And then you have the second half of the song, which deals with the development of that. And that presents the new material. And it contrasts that. And something that is worth noting is that the progression 1 plays over all of the introduction and the presentation of the thematic material, save for that B section, which foreshadows the rest. Everything else, all of the contrasting material, uses the second progression, the Royal Road, and the outro as well does. So it's like you have this journey from one state, and that's developed on, and then new information mixed in with that, and then you return back to where you were with a new perspective. So the outro is the same as the intro, but it's with a new perspective. I also want to note the difference between rhythms, between these two halves, because the first half of the song, now the rhythm section, like the piano and everything, remains the same throughout, which is really interesting, because in spite of all of these little changes and fluctuations throughout the song, there's something underlying all of that, a foundation under all of that, which may change in itself, but the rhythm is the same and the structure is the same. And you'll note that if you scroll through the transcription that I made, it remains the same throughout the entire piece. And there's something interesting about that, in that it's like a constant that you can kind of hold on to throughout changing winds. And there's a comfort in that. Also, I wanted to note one distinction between the rhythms of the first half of the song and the second half of the song in the melody. The melody for the A section, the first half of the song before the bridge section is it's relatively complex. And so you have shifting lines of all sorts in different durations and different pitches and everything, and it presents this little story arc throughout it. But the second half is based on much more repetitive structures. So you have like the that section, which just repeats that rhythm for many, many bars. And so there are these repetitive sort of trance-like rhythms that go throughout this new material, which contrasts the more lyrical material in the first half. And part of the reason I think that's interesting, so the thematic material that is presented as the initial state is varied and complex, but the second half is based on rhythms that are much easier to internalize and to repeat and kind of get into. And there's a familiarity that's being presented there and a comfort in that, despite it being new territory. And so it helps balance the whole thing. This is a very, very balanced piece of music. The repetitive rhythms also just help, in the second half, also just help drive home the very emotional point in the music and in the lyrics. So those are my thoughts on Don't Think Twice. If you want the PDF, you can find it on Patreon, which there'll be a link to in the description. If you want to see my transcription of the song played out, there should be a YouTube video uploaded just prior to this one, and there should be a link to that in the description as well. If you have any questions or just thoughts that you would like to share, please do share in the comments, or if you want to discuss with me more actively, then you can look at the Discord server, and we can talk about it there. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.